1. Michael! Michael, where are you? I told you to get your room cleaned 15 minutes ago. Your father's going to be home any second, and he expects this room to be spick and span. Where are you? Michael! Kelsey Ripple raced through her house looking for her son. He was 13 and just entering those awful teen years when Kelsey had to buy the extra protein-fighting detergent just to get the cum stains out of his bedclothes, and when they refused to do any chores or help around the house. It's not like he was asked to do that much, just the dishes every once in a while and to take the trash out now and again. He shouldn't mind helping out around the house, especially when his father is as vicious and demanding as Kent. Kelsey opened and searched every room on their home's third floor but could not find her son, only their housekeeper, Jessa Lynn, taking a personal call which would have to be dealt with at a later time. Michael, you'd better answer me right this second, young man. Don't make me count to 3. She passed Michael's bedroom and slammed the door shut on her descent down the staircase. The second floor only had a bathroom, 3 closets, a guest bedroom, and Kent's locked, top-secret, no-kids-or-wife-allowed office, and Michael wasn't in any of them, and he wasn't in the kitchen on the first floor, or the living room, or the powder room, or in the foyer. He wasn't in the garage, and he wasn't in the Tesla, or the housekeeper's 1999 Plymouth Grand Voyager. Just when Kelsey was about to call the police and report a missing child, Kent's sleek Porsche crested the hill of Spruce Drive, pulled in their driveway over the stupid speed bump Kelsey had installed, slid past the sign reading Beach House, and parked under the basketball hoop. Kelsey, usually one to greet her husband at his car, ran back inside. In a hushed but audible tone, she whisper-yelled, "Michael, Kenneth, Ripple, your father is home." The door opened and Kent slammed his briefcase down on the kitchen island. That goddamn Richardson always wants me to stay late, and he never asks any of the other goddamn guys. So I said I had a sore throat and left at work. I don't want any shit about it, okay? So don't give me any fucking shit. I missed you. He kisses Kelsey on her forehead as he takes off his suit jacket, folds it in half at the shoulders, and drapes it over a nearby chair. I'm making chicken piccata for dinner. It'll be ready around 6:15. Why don't you go ahead and watch your show? Kelsey begged, hoping he would take the bait, watch his stupid cop show, and not go upstairs and see that their son did not clean his room for the 4th time this week. Kent smiled and looked at her, tilting his head. That sounds great, honey. He slowly walks over to her and puts his hand on his shoulder. I love you. He leans in and kisses her with his wet lips and retreats to the living room while shouting, "Bring me a beer!" over his shoulder. Well, damn, Kelsey thinks. She had hoped she could use this time to search for her son and get his room cleaned, but now this. She opens the fridge only to find that the beer supply is empty. Luckily, Kent always stores more beer in the basement fridge, so Kelsey slips on her house shoes, opens the basement door, turns on the light, and descends the steep staircase, closing the door behind her. When she reaches the basement, she makes her way to the fridge when she notices that the light in the rec room is on. Why she didn't think to look there in the first place, she will never know, but she was sure this was where Michael must have gotten away to, and why he must not have hurt her in the first place. Michael? She pushes open the already cracked recreation room door and finds nothing too out of the ordinary. A muted TV, some papers strewn about. She turns off the light and shuts the door. Where could Michael be if not in the recreation room, she thinks. She gets a cold beer out of the spare fridge for her husband and heads back upstairs, closing and locking the basement door. Where the hell's my beer, babe? The intro to the show is over, and you know I like to drink when I watch this shit, Kent yelled from the living room. She apologizes as she hands him the beer and promises that dinner will be ready shortly. Back in the kitchen, she throws some pasta and hot water onto the stove to boil and exits into the backyard. Pulling the door shut quietly behind her, she turns to look out at their 1.5-acre lot, and as she scans the yard, she notices a little white blob on the ground at the edge of the property. There he is, resting in the yard, watching the clouds. That's why he couldn't hear her shouting for him. Michael! She yells at a medium volume, hoping not to be heard inside, but heard at the bottom of the yard at the same time. No response. He must be listening to music. He'd just gotten AirPods for Christmas. Kelsey looked through the nearby window and verified that Kent was still caught up in whatever this awful show he liked on CBS All Access was. Kelsey could never tell. It was so bad. It was something about a lawyer, but she didn't think it was The Good Fight because she liked Christine Baranski, and she didn't remember seeing her when she would look at the TV when she was in between doing laundry and cooking dinner for Kent. She began to walk down the yard, clapping her hands every few yards to try and get her son's attention, but as she got closer, she realized it wasn't her son, but a bag of some sort of refuse. Where the hell was Michael? She almost turned back, but something told her that if her husband saw that some bag of trash had somehow rolled down the hill from the end of their driveway over their septic tank system and then all the way to the bottom near the fence line at the edge of the forest, that he'd probably be upset, so she might as well go get it and put it in the garbage can. Kelsey reaches the bottom of the yard, takes a few deep breaths. The hill was quite steep. Michael and his friend Austin would play and roll down it and kiss at the bottom. Michael didn't think Kelsey had seen it the other day, but she had. They're all lucky Kent hadn't seen, though. He wouldn't take too kindly to Michael being a sissy of any kind. Kelsey noticed that the garbage bag was a little wet, and the surrounding area was really damp as well, but she just thought that it might be rain or dew or something. She never in a million years would have imagined that it was the dismembered corpse of all three of her children and that her husband was planning to kill her as well. 2. Kent knew that Kelsey would have found the garbage bags by now, and if she hadn't, she was as retarded as he always knew she was. In fact, maybe he should check, because she might not have figured it out by now, because she was pretty fucking retarded. Kent poked his head through the curtains overlooking the deck and forest and saw his wife at the bottom of the yard picking up the first garbage bag at the edge of the fence line. Caroline. It wouldn't be long now. He grabbed his revolver and loaded the whole chamber, then went into the kitchen where he was sure his wife would soon enter and confront him about what he'd done. He'd be ready. 3. Kelsey lugged the first heavy, wet, stinking bag of garbage up to the top of the hill and loaded it in the brown Rumpke trash can. She took a few deep breaths and then went back down the hill to retrieve what she thought had been 2 more bags of the wet trash. She didn't know what it could possibly be. Maybe some wet leaves that someone had raked up, perhaps the gardener. And maybe they smelled that way because they were rotting in the wetness. I mean, it was really damp around here and muddy and wet, so it could be the wet leaves stinking for sure. She grabbed the next bag of trash. It was a little bit heavier than the last. Branches and sticks, too. Maybe rocks. She dragged it slowly up the hill before it ripped a little bit and got stuck on a nearby twig, which began the chain reaction that ended up slowly ripping the entire bag, spilling the entire contents. The brutally, unrecognizably disfigured and dismembered, tortured corpse of her eldest son all over the lawn that their neighbor Ted had mowed only yesterday. Kelsey thought the load suddenly felt lighter and turned around to find that the bag had ripped and spilled a bunch of wet, meaty dog food all over the ground. She knew that Ted had 2 corgis, Emily and Max, and that he fed them that stinky, wet dog food stuff, and just assumed that he had put some expired dog food out in the trash, and perhaps the wind knocked them over and blew them to the bottom of their shared backyard. She grabbed a rake from the garage and began to use it to rake up the sopping wet, putrid, stinking meat into a pile at the edge of the fence line. She figured it'd be good for the soil thereby, sort of like manure, and maybe a nice flower would grow. She peered around behind the fence and found the 3rd bag. At last, Michael, and dragged it around to the front. Puncturing it with the forks of her rake, she rips open the bag and spreads the meat from the 3rd bag, a little less meat than the other, but meat nonetheless, and coats the soil in front of the fence in an even layer. 4. Kent watches in amazement as Kelsey treks back up to the trash can, retrieves the first bag of trash from the trash can, Caroline, drags it back down to the fence line, rips it open with the rake, and spreads it across the rest of the fence line. 5. Satisfied with the even layer she had spread with Ted's rotten compost dog manure meat mixture, Kelsey returned the rake to the garage, after rinsing it with water, of course. Kent would be livid if she hadn't, and re-entered the kitchen to find Kent standing butt-ass naked, cupping his balls with one hand and rubbing the head of his penis with the other. "Kent! Oh my God! What the hell? What if the kids see you?" she screamed. Judging by the look on Kent's face, Kelsey thought that Kent hadn't thought about the kids possibly seeing him naked, as Kelsey had suspected, because he never thought about things like that when it came to sex. He just had to get off. He didn't care if the kids were in the same room or if they'd hear him say, "This is the best vacation ever," after coming inside their mother in the Great Wolf Lodge. He just wanted to get laid. But that's not what was going through Kent's mind. The kids? What do you mean, what if the kids see you? The kids are gone, baby. He lunges towards Kelsey with his tongue out, darting back and forth, moaning, and grabs her, trying to force his tongue down her throat. She pushes him back gently, careful not to stir the beast. "Where are they?" she asks sincerely, not sure if he'd arranged for them to go to Carolyn's or to his sister's house or something, and maybe she'd forgotten that it was their anniversary. "Kelsey, stop playing dumb, baby. You know where they are, and my God, baby, what you just did. Wow, baby, look what it's doing to me." He looks down, which causes her to do the same, and he's stroking his hard penis viciously with his right hand. It looks painful. "Kent, what are you talking about? I'm really confused here. Are the kids at Jolicity's?" she asked. Kent wasn't having much fun anymore, but he thought Kelsey might be playing stupid or something to get him angry, so he'd rage fuck her or something, and after the sick, depraved, disgusting thing he'd just watched her do, spread the dismembered, mutilated, mushed up, blended remains of their children publicly across the back of their property, instead of being really pissed off, was a humongous turn-on. "No, baby, Daddy's been a bad, bad boy," he says. Still thinking they're being sexy, he drops down in a squat and slaps his ass. "I slaughtered, raped, dismembered, blended, and bagged up the fucking kids this morning. Ugh," he moans, puts his face down on the ground, grabs his ass cheeks, opening them wide, gaping his asshole at his wife. "I want you to fuck my ass good and hard. Destroy me, you fucking disgusting, depraved, and horrible cunt." A single tear rolled down Kelsey's cheek as she realized what this all meant, what she'd done and must now do. Noticing the revolver nearby, Kelsey takes it and stimulates Kent's ass with it for a few seconds before screaming, pulling the trigger once, sending a shot directly up his anal cavity, which didn't kill him but did hurt like a motherfucker. He leapt up in pain and ran across the room. Kelsey, not sure if she could stand to live any longer, puts the gun in her mouth and cocks it. She thinks about all the memories she had with her kids and all of the memories her children would never have and the dreams they would never fulfill. She closes her eyes, and just as she's about to pull the trigger to end her life, she tastes the unmistakably bitter taste of Kent's asshole and a little bit of shit residue from his ass at the end of the gun. She opens her eyes, newly enraged, thinking of all the times she'd eaten her husband's disgusting asshole, for him to then go and do something psychopathic like this, and quickly follows the trail of butt blood into the next room where she finds her husband cowering in the corner. "Fucking hell, Kels, my ass hurts so fucking goddamn bad, but my cock is still so goddamn hard." Kelsey silences him with a bullet directly to the face, ending his life instantly. Without hesitation, she recocks the trigger, pulls the trigger without hesitation, and drops to her knees, lifeless, in a pool of her own and her moments ago murdered dead husband's blood. 6. That summer, after Ted had heard gunshots, called the police, the investigation had been done, and the house had been cleaned, marketed, and sold, The Testermans moved in. The realtor, Archie, told them what had happened in the house as required by law, but the Testermans didn't mind. The house was stunning and it was a good neighborhood, so they snatched it up. Janet Testerman would often sit on the back deck and look down at the fence line and think about the children who had been turned into a blended up mess and spread across the lawn there. She planted some trees and flowers there, and when her dog, Scout, died, she buried him under the tree. The whole thing's kind of disgusting when you think about it. That was the importance of being tidy. I don't know why, but I'm doing this. I'm recording this now, but I haven't actually recorded me telling the story yet, even though this is the outro of the story. Listen, I know nobody cares. I know nobody's watching this. I know nobody's listening. I know all of that. I know it's cringe. I know it's self-aggrandizing. Fuck, I don't even know if that's the right thing to say. But you know what? It doesn't matter because nobody's listening to this. Nobody's hearing it. Raise your hand if you have self-destructive tendencies. Because I just left work early without telling anybody. And now I'm too anxious. Well, I'm not really that anxious. But one of my coworkers texted me and said, "Bruh, are you still at work?" But it's not a big deal because he's not the manager, and I don't think the manager comes in for hours, and whatever. I'm a human fucking being. I'm a human fucking being. I can leave whenever the fuck I want. And I will fight that till the day I fucking die. I will fucking live and die by that flag, that I am a fucking human being, and I can leave and do whenever the fuck I want. Period. Always. At any time. And I'm not joking. I'm laughing because of how passionate I am, but I'm being fucking serious. But it is self-destructive. It's not good, but you know, you're there and you're like, I just don't want to be. And I shouldn't have to be. And I know I'm not going to get in any trouble more than like maybe a point. And what's a point mean? Nothing, unless you rack up like 30. And you know how many I have? 6. So it doesn't even matter. So why not? I mean, I just feel like as human beings, we should just be able to come in and go as we please. I mean, ultimately, the reward that we're there for is money. So if I'm willing to sacrifice the hours and not come in at 6 a.m. and if I leave at 8 instead of 1, that's my fault. I lose 5 hours, you know, however, I'm not going to do the fucking math right now, but I lose all of that. That's the punishment. That's the issue. You know, of course, there's so many reasons why they have to have all these rules in place, because obviously if there were no rules in place and we could come and go as we please, nobody would fucking come in. But yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. Because, you know what? Because somebody's going to have to come in to get the money. Everybody's got to come in and somebody's got to work. And you know they will, because when I was a forklift driver at DSC Logistics, I worked only the 4 days a week that I was supposed to. 4 10-hour shifts. That's it. That's what I signed up for. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to do overtime unless it's mandatory. And if it's mandatory, I quit. But there were guys there who would sign up for voluntary shifts on like Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and just over the weekend or just come in on their days off for all the extra money because that was their incentive. They wanted the money. They wanted the overtime pay. Whatever. Good on ya. I signed up for 40 hours and I worked 40 hours. Why can't it just be like that at any... But, of course, they were scheduled 40 hours and you had attendance points and blah, 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 blah. But why can't... Let's say I run a business and all of the employees that I have, I say, I'd like you to work 30 hours each week. And they need to be, you know, obviously we're only open X amount of hours, so you figure it out. But you, in your week, if you work 30 hours, I'm good. What's wrong with that? And if they show up at 8 a.m. when the store opens, cool. If they show up at noon, cool. If they work for 30 minutes and they're like, you know what, I'm just not feeling it today, they go home. If they don't want to come in for 2 days in a row and then they want to work 10 hours and then come in the next day and work 10 hours and then, what? You know what? Why? We're human fucking beings. The work will get done. You just got to trust people. And that's why it's ultimately not self-destructive that I left work early.
Drink your prune juice, you old bat.